All right. Just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. My name is Caleb Kupa, and I'm an assistant at Westtown, right outside of Philadelphia. Really happy that you were all able to tune in tonight. I feel like tonight's going to be a really great opportunity to learn and grow. Seven really great assistant coaches that are all destined to be head coaches very soon in the near future. Have gotten to know each of these coaches really well over quarantine. So really happy about that, and really happy that they were willing to share some of their time and give some knowledge to some young coaches, to some older coaches, everybody in the business. So really appreciate all seven of the coaches coming on tonight. Again, really appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time. Just a couple housekeeping things. Just ask that everyone mutes their microphones. We'll do an interactive kind of Q&A with the audience after the first 45 minutes of the questions that we have preset for each coach. So once we get through that, we'll open it up for questions in the audience. We're going to try and stick at an hour, 2 hours tops. We want to be mindful of everyone's time. These assistants have things to do, so we want to make sure that we're being mindful of their time. And with that, again, just want to thank everybody that just came in, and looking forward to tonight. I feel like it's going to be a really great opportunity to learn and grow, like I talked about earlier. So our first coach is Matt Graves. He's the newly appointed assistant coach at Mount St. Mary. So congratulations, coach, on that promotion to you. And the first question that we have is, you were recently promoted as an assistant coach. What were some things that you did as a Dobo to ready yourself for this position?
All right. Good to see everybody. Thanks, Caleb, for I guess allowing me to speak and kind of share a little bit of the story about me and all that. But to answer your question, first and foremost, I have to give a lot of credit to Coach Dan Ingolstadt. He really pretty much, in order for me to go there, he really sold it to me as I would be kind of the fourth assistant coach. So there's a lot of things that I did that, normally Dobos don't do. Like, I did the travel and I did all that stuff, but I did a lot of other stuff too, which was kind of cool. So some of those examples were, in terms of scouts, Dan really does it a little bit different, where each coach does every scout. And for me, my job was a personnel. And so I did all the personnel, did the matchups and things like that for every scout and all that. Secondly, kind of my role in recruiting was, once they got on campus for official visits, I was the one doing tours and itineraries and all that stuff. So I really kind of focused on that. Ran elite camp and was kind of the guy that put everything together for elite camp. And another thing that I think has helped me kind of go into Division I assistant coach was, I learned all the sports coach synergy, all the video stuff as well. And really took pride in, keeping everybody organized. My head coach, Dan, on task as well. And the last thing I did to kind of prepare myself as I thought about it was, I sat down with all of our assistants and kind of asked them what they did, how certain things in our program work, so that whenever the time came, I was ready to do that. So pretty much the one piece of advice I'd give I don't know if there's any Dobos on here or not, but definitely talk to your head coach. Like, I had a conversation with Dan before I took the job, like, hey, and this is just me, I didn't want to be a Dobo for, the rest of my time. I don't want to be stuck in the Dobo role. And I let him know that. And he was understanding it. He didn't want that in his Dobo. He wanted another assistant coach. And so, and not all head coaches are like that, obviously, but I told him that, and he kind of kept his word, which I really appreciate him for that. And then lastly, obviously, meet with your assistants. There's a reason why, obviously, they're assistants, and they are doing what they do. And so I've met with Matt Miller and Will and Coach X when he was here. I met with them all the time and worked with them really closely. And so I was able to kind of pick some things from them, and also teach them some things too that maybe I knew from my other jobs and all that. and always know that you're being evaluated. So if you're not being evaluated by your head coach and your staff, you're being evaluated by other people that you're playing. You know, your interaction with different coaches on the road, or not on the road, but in games and things like that, so that when your times comes, you're ready to go.
No, that's great. I think what you did in talking with your head coach and having that open line of communication was big time, just because he knew your aspirations and he was able to kind of help you grow to be an assistant coach. So I think that's really good. So appreciate that, Coach. So next we're going to go to Coach Martelli. He's an assistant coach at Bryant. So Coach, just tell us a little bit about yourself. And then the first question, having been an assistant with 5 different programs, what can you share about some of the things that young coaches have done to be successful and that you've really taken notice of?
So, Caleb, appreciate your time and everybody's time. Obviously, none of you guys, I'm sure everybody's got the Dame versus LeBron show up in the background. So it looks like it's a commercial right now, so maybe you'll actually hear what I say. But so I've been around now. This is my 17th year of coaching. Luckily, my face doesn't look that old, but my hairline does, so it kind of balances out. But 17 years, as Caleb said, a bunch of different spots here: Central Connecticut, Manhattan, Niagara, Delaware, the Sixers / Delaware 87ers, St. Joe's to now Bryant. When he sent me the question about, what have I seen from the best young guys, I think the biggest thing, and this was something for me that was important right away, was showing you can handle responsibility. And Matt kind of just hit on it, at Mount. Like, if you can show you can handle responsibility, you're going to get more responsibility. And I've had guys, we've had volunteers at different places I've been, young guys, first year getting in, and they're gung-ho, and they want to come in the door, and they want to tell you, like, well, if you play the ball screen this way, if you put, slow down, take a deep breath, slow down. You don't need to come in the door and say, well, I know this, and I saw this video, and you don't need all that. What you need to do is you need to show you handle responsibility. And, if I give you something, or if the head coach gives you something, get it done the right way, get it done in a reasonable amount of time, so that it doesn't have to be something that is constantly on my checklist saying, like, okay, where's the video playbook? I'm still waiting on the video playbook. Why is that not done yet? But you want to come in and you want to talk about, whatever it is. No, like, this is your task right now. If you can show you can get that done, then okay, here's the next one and the next one and the next one. And so to me, I think that's really valuable. Show that you can work hard, so that you can handle responsibility, and show that there's nothing, I in my role today, at Bryant, like, there's still nothing that is below any of us. And I'll give you a quick example. I just spent 5 hours on our campus in our COVID testing tent, because they're having everybody in athletics go into. I hated every second of it. I'm not going to lie. Like, sit here and say, like, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hated every second of it. I bitched about it the whole time. But it's something you got to do. It's something you got to do so that we can have a season, or we can have a school year, or whatever it is. So, I think sometimes guys look at this and go, like, oh, you're a basketball coach, you get to coach basketball. No, like, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm standing there, asking some sorority girl for her student ID so we can plug it in the system and she can, shove a swab up her nose. That's not basketball, but it's part of the responsibility. So I think it's handling responsibility. As you get deeper into this, thinking like a head coach is huge. Me and Jared have been friends a long time. We started in the business together. We'd always talked about working together in one way, shape, or form. It materialized in this way. So we kind of have a connection. When he calls me and says, oh, we got to talk to the guys about, it's already done. Or we got to think about this. Yeah, here you go. Here it is. So it's thinking like the head coach, trying to be 2 or 3 steps ahead. And ultimately, the best thing you can do is whoever's above you. If you're a volunteer video guy and you're really working for the ops guy, okay, what can I take off the ops guy's plate? What can I take off his desk? Okay, if you're the ops guy, what can I take off one of the assistants' desks? Okay, if you're the assistant, what can I take off the associate head coach's desk or the head coach's desk? And so on and so on and so on, so that the next person sees value in you, and sees, like, okay, this is somebody I can trust. This is somebody I can rely on Because again, like, you don't know, Matt's a good example because he just got bumped up, and I went through the same thing at Central Connecticut, 16, 17 years ago. Like, you don't know what that person sees in you, and you just want to show, like, look, I can handle anything. So there are guys that get stuck in an ops role or a video role because they do a good job in that role, but they haven't shown that they can handle anything else, and that's tough for some people. That's tough to get pigeonholed that way. So it's constantly trying to show the next person and the next person, the next person, here's my value, here's my work ethic, here's the responsibilities I can handle, and keep throwing more at me.
No, I think that's great. I mean, obviously, like you said, you have to be able to build that trust with your head coach to make sure that they can trust you doing the smaller tasks before they give you the bigger tasks. I think that's big time for sure. All right, so next we're going to go to Coach Jones down at Florida State. So Coach Jones is the associate head coach down at Florida State with Coach Hamilton. Has been working with him for over 20 years. So, Coach, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then your first question is, what are some of the things that you've been able to learn from Coach Hamilton through your time with him?
Well, I appreciate all you young guys giving a little space to an old, crusty, grumpy old man. I didn't know I'd be at this point in my career, but I think I'm killing it being a grumpy old coach at this time of my career. But I've been with Coach Hamilton for 25 of the last 26 years. Before that, I was a high school head coach for 14 years. While I was in college, I coached junior high and elementary school, so I've seen every level. I got to spend 1 year in the NBA when Coach Hamilton was the head coach of the Washington Wizards. And the year after that, he was not in coaching, and I was on the staff with Rick Stansbury at Mississippi State, and had a very fortunate year to be there when they won the SEC tournament championship that year. So I've been fortunate to be around a lot of winning and a lot of successful people. And I'll try to be very brief because the question that you asked me, I could talk all night on what I've learned from Leonard Hamilton and how to be a CEO and a head basketball coach of a program that has to be built up, and then how to sustain success because he's just a master. And I'm really talking to him already. I think he's going to coach for quite a while longer. But when he's done coaching, he certainly needs to be, or if any of you guys become head coaches, you need to hire him as a consultant very quickly in your tenure as a head coach, because he is phenomenal in understanding our business without everybody in the world knowing that he knows that much about the business. And or he should write a book. He should do one of the two things. But I'm going to try to give you a few really quick points that I think for all you aspiring head coaches that are dreaming of getting there one day that I've learned from Leonard Hamilton. Number one is the value of ego IQ. We've heard people talk about emotional intelligence. We hear people talk about obviously regular IQ and how smart you are and aptitude. But Leonard Hamilton has an unbelievable ego IQ. And I hear so many horror stories in our business of people that don't know how to treat their staffs, that work almost in a dictatorial, militant style with their staff, with their team, and those kind of things. And Coach Hamilton is just a true everyday example of selfless being greater than self-serving. And I would challenge all of you to grow. You can make it in this business at a very high level, being a selfless person, sharing the spotlight, sharing the stage, sharing responsibilities, and not thinking it's all about you. And J. Leonard Hamilton is the epitome of that. Number two that I've learned from him is the importance of being an elite personnel manager. When you become a head coach, he started telling me this the first year I was with him down at the University of Miami in 1995-96, is the hardest thing you have to do as a head coach, but the most important thing you have to do as a head coach is hire your staff. And he has an incredible ability. He hasn't always hit them all, but his batting average is incredible in terms of filling his staff out to complete the program and to fill in the leadership gaps he thinks he has. And as a leader, when you can be that vulnerable and that open and that honest to your staff and know everybody's now solidified where there's no weaknesses in the front of your team, you can now get your team to become better followers, which in turn makes them be better leaders. And he is a master at being able to get the people on his staff that will make him complete, make our program complete. The third point I've learned from Coach Hamilton is, and this is an amazing thing of him, is how to trust your first instinct. While you're trusting it, you got to take a deeper dive towards the answer. And what I mean by that is Coach Hamilton's a lot like if the legendary chess player Bobby Fischer, the only American to ever win the World Chess Championship. It was said by him that before he made a move on the chessboard, he had thought out 66 moves of what could happen if he makes that move. And Coach Hamilton thinks that same way. The only time sometimes that makes me real nervous is in 30-second timeouts, because sometimes we don't have that long, and you got to go with that gut instinct a little quicker and go with that. But the ability to think things through, I mean, it amazes me, Coach CY and Coach Smith on our staff. I mean, we'll walk in and somebody said, how did he think that out? I never would have thought that, and it solved a problem for us. When if you'd just jumped at it with your emotional reaction or just, oh, yeah, that sounds good, you make a lot of mistakes. And that's where I think a lot of young coaches miss the boat a lot. And I tell all the young guys that work in our student staff support, the biggest mistake young coaches make is they move too fast. It's like when you take a math test when you're in school and you always get points deducted because you make careless mistakes because you didn't think through your work. And Coach Hamilton never does that. A couple other things, and I'll try to get off. So my dad was a preacher, so I get a little tendency to go along a little bit, and I hope I don't offend anybody. The fourth thing he does is he has this sense of an elite private detective. And I say that not just about trying to figure out what your players are doing wrong. And I tell all you coaches, as you become a head coach, the thing that makes Coach Hamilton unique is his ability to figure out who has the real voice. And I'm not just talking about the recruiting thing. That's the obvious part. In that coach's time at the University of Miami and now Florida State, he's always been able to smell out and figure out who really was the decision maker. And and immediately within the first week, he starts making that person his best friend and his ally. Case in point, at the University of Miami, he went through 4 different ADs, some really tough years when he first took the job over, never lost his job. Florida State, we've been through 5 ADs and 4 presidents in our time at Florida State. Those guys were never the people making the final call. Coach had figured that out behind the scenes and he's a sleuth at doing that. And as a coach, you need to learn that in terms of longevity in your career, how to figure out who that person is that's going to tell people, yeah, we're keeping that guy, or yeah, we're letting go of that guy. So just some food for thought for everybody, and we can have some questions and answers on that stuff later. A couple other things, and I'll shut up. The sixth thing he's really good at is the fifth thing, rather, being a crisis manager with a profound calmness. And what I mean by that, he has the ability to get things calmed down and get things corrected and make the other people think it was their idea. He's never one of those guys that gets so confrontational it just turns into an angry back and forth. He talks things through and makes it, by the time they're through, whether it's a kid having a problem with his role or an administrator not doing things the right way, by the end of the day, he's got what he's wanted and they think it's their idea. So having that ability to have that calmness and be a crisis manager, unbelievable skill. Next is his ability to control the narrative. If you ever watch him do an interview post-game, especially after a bad game, you can always see it. Whenever they ask that controversial question, Coach will always have that tilt his head back and have that big smile with a little chuckle and diffuse everything, but he's calming himself down to control the narrative. And then he has an unbelievable skill to answer every question thrown at him without ever answering the question. And that's an absolute skill to be a great head coach and to handle the ups and downs of our business. The seventh thing he always talks about is his dad taught him never let anybody outwork you. And the one thing I'll tell you about that with him, a lot of people in our business, they think getting in the office at 6 a.m. and not going home till 11 is outworking people. Well, Coach Hamilton's the hardest working guy that I know in the business, but he also lets his staff have autonomy. He cares about you doing things with your family. His thing is we're going to outwork people, but we're still going to have balance in our lives. And as long as you get the job done, I don't care if you make your phone calls from at home or if you sit in the office, that's your choice. But a lot of coaches don't have the comfortability in doing that. And I take that back to not being a very good personnel manager, where if you hire people, you got to trust those people to do the job you hired them for. If you didn't, you did a bad job as the head coach being that personnel manager. And the last thing he's great at, and this is one reason people ask, why haven't you left yet? You got to be lucky. It's hard to get a head coaching job, but he is the absolute best at being responsible for everything that doesn't go the way it was intended. The minute something goes bad for us in a recruiting thing, if If we lose a kid we thought we had, or we screw up a scouting report, or a player not playing very well and is in a slump, you'll never hear Coach Hamilton. And this is not just in public, but it's in private too. If I've lost out on a recruit, the first thing he'll come in my office and say, "Man, I didn't help you enough with that. Don't. That's on me. I should have done this and that for you." So when you're working for a guy that's always going to take responsibility, even when things aren't great, hard to leave that guy. And I've found it. And I tell young coaches this all the time: it's more important who you work for than what level you work at. I've been fortunate enough to work at a very high level, but I work with a guy that he is the genuineness of a leader, because he's not afraid to take the blame on himself. Even though I may have made the egregious mistake, he's still going to say, "I'm the leader. It's on me." And so those are the things that I've learned from Coach Hamilton. I think that every coach on this Zoom call tonight can find a point or two in there that's going to make you a better assistant and will make you a phenomenal head coach when you get that opportunity.
No, that's great. Obviously, our point guard just committed to Florida State, so we've gotten to know Coach Jones and Coach Hamilton pretty well throughout this recruiting process. And I think Coach Hamilton's really, really cerebral. But I think we'd be remiss to not say what a great right hand man he has in Coach Jones, and the trust and loyalty they've been able to build by being together for this long. So I think Coach Jones would never say it about himself, but obviously he's had a huge success, or a huge part in the success that Florida State has had over these past this tenure of their success. So thank you, Coach. We appreciate the great.
Thank you for your graciousness. You didn't have to say that, but thank you.
Of course. All right. So next we're going to go to Coach Lagroone. So just a funny little point about Coach. He was on a Rising Coaches call probably about 2 months ago. I texted him afterwards and asked him if we could just have a quick conversation. It ended up being 3 hours. We were on the phone talking about everything for 3 hours. And the next time we talked, I think we talked for 2 hours. So, I mean, this dude is a high level guy that I've really come to respect. And he's been a great mentor for me trying to break into the business. So appreciate that, Coach. And the first thing, after you kind of give a little bit about yourself, just kind of talk about what you helped me understand about building relationships and the importance of valuing true relationships over maybe false relationships, and just go a little bit in depth about some of the things we talked about in those 5 hours that we talked.
Yeah. No, awesome. Very first and foremost, Caleb, and obviously everyone else, man, I appreciate you guys being on here and let me have the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I promise you, I would not go that long. I would not talk that much. My alarm clock goes off at 4:30. My wife would probably be coming down these stairs and looking at me crazy if I go that long at all anyway. But no, man, I'm very fortunate and blessed. Obviously you got a tremendous group of coaches on here. And I don't think I probably belong on here with them. I'm entering actually 10 years into the coaching profession for me. Started off at a high school out in Ohio as a freshman coach, assistant JV coach. And then I moved on and was a graduate assistant at Mississippi State for 2 years. And then after that, I took a head high school job in Atlanta, Georgia at Green Forest Christian Academy, where I was there for a year. And then I did 4 years at Southeast Missouri State with Rick Ray. Half of the year pretty much for the Dobo, and then obviously the rest of the time as an assistant. And then I just finished my first year at Presbyterian College with Quentin Farrell. But to touch on your question, and obviously that's a huge question for me when you start talking about, building genuine relationships within a profession. Because for me, obviously, again, it's like a brotherhood. We all are trying to cultivate and mold and obviously get to know so many different people. But I'm a big believer for me that, and again, I hope this don't rub anybody the wrong way, but I'm a big believer that God is going to put the right people in my life that's supposed to be in my life. And I try to actually, I try to go through my life, knowing that I always say he aligns the stars with the stars. And so the way I think of how I build relationships may not be the way you guys may think about it. But again, it works for me. It gives me peace at heart. And I know for me, I feel like it's authentic. And so with that being said, the first thing I'll say, and it's the truth, are you trying to befriend a logo or are you trying to befriend a person? because I truly think there's a difference. I talked to Caleb about this when we was on the phone the very first time. When I was a graduate assistant at Mississippi State, I remember being at the Final Four for those first 2 years. It was in New Orleans and it was in Atlanta. And obviously no one knew much about me, but they saw the Mississippi State logo. And so you have a lot of people flock to you and try to, obviously get to know you, see what you're, obviously get to know your title, because they're trying to build some type of connection, because everybody in this business already realized that it's hard to be in this business in the first place. And everybody talks about it's all about who you know. It's not what you know until you get there. And so I think a lot of people, they try to create their avenue by finding who's ever at the highest level that they possibly can be, because they think that they can kind of align them with the other people that can ultimately put them in this position. And so for me, I've never been a fan of getting to know people for what's on the front of their shirt. I've always been a big believer on what's inside of their chest, and obviously that's the true authenticity of who that individual is. So I ask myself 2 questions when it comes to building relationships with people within the profession. The very first question I ask myself is, what do me and this individual have in common outside of basketball? Because obviously everybody on this call, that's what brought us here now. We all here to learn about, how to navigate ourselves in the profession of basketball. So we all have that number one thing in common. So we could talk about that probably for hours and hours upon hours. But for me, I want to know if me and this person have common interests in other areas of our life. Because my priorities are this simple. Number 1 is God. Number 2 is my wife. Number 3 is my son. Number 4 is my family. And then number 5 is everybody else. And I'm the last person that I serve. But for me, if I'm going to take my time to get to know another person, that means that I'm not going to be able to kind of grow in those other areas of my life. That means somebody's going to make a sacrifice. Obviously, I don't want God to make a sacrifice. I definitely don't want my wife and my son to make a sacrifice. So I want to make sure that it's real and authentic when I'm obviously trying to build that relationship. And the only way I can do that is if we have obviously common interests. And then 2, I always ask myself, would I be friends with this individual if they weren't in this profession? Because I always say I tell my kids when we recruit them, basketball brought us together, but I promise you that won't keep us together. And that's how I approach my life, obviously my relationships within this profession. If I lose my job, are you not going to be friends with me? Are you not going to call and check up on me and my family 5 or 10 years from now, or 2 or 3 months from now? Because obviously I've seen that. And that's obviously the same thing. If somebody that I know happens to want to get out the business, it's like, you know what, that guy's not an avenue for me to get to Florida State or get to Bryant or get to Miami or wherever else it may be. It's like, do I not be friends with this individual anymore? Do I not call and check up on him and his wife during the corona pandemic? And I think for us, that's the biggest thing that I look at, being a young coach in this profession. Because I say it like this: every coach is not going to have time to befriend me. Like, they have priorities, they have a life, they have children, they have a wife, they have other things that they're interested in. So you got to make sure that is it worth building a relationship or a genuine relationship with this specific individual? And the only way you can do that is by that person truly getting to know who this individual is. So when they take the time away from their family to take this phone call and run outside or go downstairs and say, honey, I'm going to step away from dinner because, such and such is calling me. They're not saying, hey, Evan Wiley is calling me from West Florida. It's like, no, hey, Evan is calling me. Oh, I know Evan. He's a really good guy, man. Yep, go ahead, take that. Make sure he's okay. I'll talk to Evan for 5-10 minutes. Hey, man, you doing all right? And then we'll keep it moving. And I think that's how I try to approach relationships. Again, everybody else may not look at it that way. I don't look at it. If somebody else tries to go after the individual that can align them and get them a job, that's totally okay. But I just know for me, when I go to bed at night, I say this, and I told Caleb this, and I really believe it. I'm a quality over quantity guy. I'd rather know 5 people that I've truly built strong relationships with rather than 100 people that probably won't remember my name after the next time we talk. Because I told Caleb this, Caleb, if we and you build a close relationship, then the people I know, and I say this to a lot of the guys that are really close with me. I mean, the people I know, So if I know 5 people and obviously we're friends, then those 5 people, or those 5 people are going to know you. Because I think that's the true way of obviously helping people in this world. Like, I want you to be on the forefront of my mind, not on the back of my mind. Somebody say, hey, I got a position come open. Caleb Kupa, oh, I know that guy's on the forefront of my mind. He's not on the backside. It's not going to be Caleb Kupa, oh, yeah, I know that guy. Yeah, by the way, yeah, he may be okay. And I think the only way you can do that is by, is really by taking time, getting to know someone for who they are as a person, before you obviously, commit to growing in that true relationship. So hope that answers your question, Caleb.
No, definitely. Great job, Coach. I mean, even hearing it a third time, you still pick up on some different things that I missed the first two times. So great job. Appreciate you being on, and thank you for that. So next we're going to go to Coach Capko. So Coach Capko is an assistant at USC. Got to know him. He participated in a mock interview. Thought he did a great job. Reached out to him, asked if we could connect. Stayed in touch, and he was more than willing to give us some of his time. So Coach, appreciate you being on. So again, just give us a little bit about yourself, and then your first question is just you transitioned from being an assistant coach at Stetson and Georgia Southern to being a Dobo at USC. So kind of tell us what that experience was like, and how did those coaching positions kind of prepare you to be successful in that Dobo role, and then eventually being moved up to an assistant at USC as well.
So like everyone, appreciate you guys having me on. I started in the professional world. I worked on Wall Street for a year and hated it. And went from working at JP Morgan Chase to being a GA in Huntington, West Virginia at Marshall. And that's really what kind of provided my foundation in terms of when I became an ops guy, to be honest with you. I was there for a year under Donnie Jones, who's now at Stetson, where I got my first job at. I was there at Stetson for 2 years. Our staff had got fired on my second year, and was fortunate enough to get hired by a guy who Coach Jones is on staff with, Coach CY. I was at Georgia Southern for 2 years, in a really messed up situation. He got fired after my second year there, his fourth year there. And so now I had been in the business for, if you want to count my GA year, I'd been in the business for 5 years and had been fired twice. So, you always hear about that stuff when you get into business, but then when it becomes reality, it's just a whole different, just a different feeling. And that same time, Coach Enfield got the job at USC. I was really fortunate. I had built a relationship with him when he was an assistant with coaching them at Florida State. And I got on as his ops guy. So my experience as an ops guy was a little bit different because I had been on the road first and taken a step back. But because of what I had been through, for me, it was just a breath of fresh air. To be honest with you, I had a chance to get on at a couple other places after that year at Georgia Southern, after my 2 years at Georgia Southern. And they were, again, programs that I was joining them kind of in the middle of their tenure. Which direction they were going, who knows? For me, coming with Coach was just a breath of fresh air for me that, I'm going to be there from the start and we're going to have some time. And, it was just good for me. So when I got there, to be honest with you, I wasn't concerned. I took it as the same experience when I was a GA. When I was a GA, I was mopping floors. I was doing laundry. What everyone said, I think it was Phil talked about, and Coach Jones had said, young people move too fast. Well, for whatever reason, I didn't have that mindset. And I didn't worry. I didn't try to impress myself in terms of what I knew about basketball or the recruits I knew or the people in the business I knew. I just went in there and tried to do my job, to be honest with you. And I just kind of felt like, if I just work hard and I build trust in my assistant coaches and my head coach and do what I'm supposed to do, whatever's supposed to happen, happens. I didn't have the conversation with Andy about, hey, if I do this, am I getting moved up? There was no expectation, to be honest with you. He didn't guarantee me anything. He didn't promise me anything. I just made it a priority of myself just to go in there and just do the job. And with that, he gave me a lot of autonomy, as Coach talked about with Coach Hamilton. I got a lot of autonomy. And when you spend so much time with guys in the business, like when you're traveling with your traveling party, you spend so much time with them anyways that you're going to talk about basketball. What you know or your acumen and all that stuff's going to come up, and it's going to happen organically. We've had young people in our program who've been so, they want to be in the recruiting meetings or they want to be in the coaching meetings that they'll miss going to check class. And so that's the stuff that makes you noticeable. And I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to do that. I just wanted to make sure I did what I had to do. If it was getting someone into school or helping with admissions or doing travel or whatever it may be, that's what I wanted to do. And I built a great relationship with Andy. I built a great relationship with our staff, but I think more than anything, they just trusted me. They trusted me to handle responsibility. They trusted me to get the job done. And so I left after 2 years at USC because if you want to coach, you need to be on the road. And I took a job at FIU. I was there for 9 months, and then Andy had movement on his staff. And because of the work I had did prior, he felt confident enough to bring me back. And it wasn't because of who I knew or what I knew, but I think it's because he trusted me that I was going to do the job. And then again, you spend so much time with everybody, your talent will start to show itself in terms of what you can do, how you interact with guys, how you handle your business, how you take care of your jobs, how you handle your tasks. That stuff starts to permeate itself or show itself, and it will happen organically. But I think I was brought back, and he had trust in me and confidence in me to be an assistant coach, which I don't take lightly, because he could have hired a lot of people, because he trusted me, because I took care of my job, and I was just only consumed with my job and making sure I did the best job that I can. And I think I just ultimately built trust in him and the staff.
No, great job, Coach. Really appreciate those nuggets. Really great job. So next we have Coach Montgomery, University of Penn. Great guy that I've gotten to know. I mean, I think the relationship that we've built, we had a player that was committed to Penn and decommitted, and Coach Montgomery has never wavered in the relationship that we have. That didn't affect anything. He was still more than willing to take my call, offer me some advice. So this is a really great dude that I'm really looking forward to. So Coach Montgomery, again, just give us a little bit about yourself. And then obviously you being a high school AU and coaching at the Division III level at Eastern, what are some of the things that you learned through those experiences that allowed you to be successful and move up to being an assistant at Penn?
Well, Caleb, I appreciate it. And I know that even though, a player left us, it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day. I mean, it's the kid's decision. And that's one thing we all have to realize, is that this is the one window that these kids have to make a decision that could change their life. So it can't be about us. It's always about the kids. So, but I appreciate this opportunity. Small town Louisiana kid, and I was coaching high school in Louisiana at my alma mater for quite a few years, and got a call and transferred up to a D3 in Pennsylvania, which was the craziest of moves, and eventually got on at Penn. And, I will say, there's two big things that transitioning through those different places that I've learned heavily. The first thing is like what Coach Stan Jones said earlier, is that it's not about you. If you have a real love for this game and you have a true understanding about what these players represent and where they come from, and you're really trying to help them out, then you're going to realize that it's not about you. Everybody, for the most part, plays basketball, has played at a certain level. Coaching is coaching. There's only so many ways to do certain things. So we're sitting here thinking that we're geniuses. We're only reinventing the wheel. But at the end of the day, it's about the players. It's about what's important to them. It's about having them transition from young men to older men, and getting them in the right position so that they can go out and be self-sufficient and hopefully be great contributing members of society. So learning that, I was one of those guys that came in that was heavily like, all right, I'm going to do the scout. I'm going to OD on it. Or I'm when it comes to recruiting, I'm going to be everywhere. I want everybody to see my face. And that's, it's good to work hard, but at the same token, it's important to know who you are and where you stand, and what's the most important piece. And learning that the players are the biggest piece. It's our performance. It's our product. Learning that they're the most important thing. That's the biggest thing. And so I think that's the most important thing that I've learned as far as the transition piece, because when you're coming up, you don't necessarily think about that. And I think the second part is that communication is key. One thing that we don't realize is that we're all great communicators, to a certain extent. We're conveying an art to young men and people around that are complete novices. We're conveying something to them that is completely unknown. We're showing kids a different way of how to work hard. We're showing them a different element of discipline. We're showing them just all types of different things, a different way of life. And, it's important for us to learn how to communicate those things effectively, especially, when you're making a jump from Louisiana, which is not the most eloquent of the speeches, to eventually the Ivy League. You're dealing with a different levels of mindsets. And so, and that's no disrespect from anywhere, but you're just different with dealing with different ways of thinking. And so, I think it's important for us to evaluate how we communicate with each other as staff members, as coaches, as mentors, men, and then also be able to understand how we convey those same ideas and concepts and those experiences that we've had to our players and our student athletes. And so I think those two things are the most effective things that I've learned over the course of my tenure as far as transitioning from place to place.
No, thanks, Coach. Appreciate that. Obviously, like you said, going from level to level, high school to D3 and then to the Ivy League is a huge jump. So the fact that you're able to transition successfully was really good. And again, just appreciate you coming on and making time to share some knowledge with the group. Our last coach, always with a great virtual background, can always count on Coach Caputo to have a great virtual background. He's the guy when it comes to that kind of stuff. He's the associate head coach at the University of Miami. Again, got to know him throughout the recruiting process a little bit. So, Coach, again, just give us a little bit about yourself. And then your question, what did your time on support staff or on Coach Larinaga's staff, what are some of the things that you did to give him confidence that he could move you up and promote you as an assistant?
Sure, thanks. Nice to be on here. I'm going to be brief. Phil talked about the Laker-Blazer game. I got that on one tab, and I got the Democratic Convention on another tab. So I'm gonna try to be done here so I can hear Biden speak. You know, we can't be having all these voting Zooms and stuff if we're not actually paying attention. So we got to do that. But no, for me, I think Coach Jones. It's funny. I've known him about as long as I've been in the business, and I must have thought he was pretty cool because he's worked for the same guy for 25 years. I've worked for the same guy now for 19 years. So I think you got two of the probably more unique careers in that sense that we've been with one person. But for me, it's been great to be both at George Mason and Miami. Oddly, 9 years at George Mason. When I was there, I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to be one at another place this long, and then two at a place this expensive, and then I go to Miami and it's more expensive, and I'm going on 10 years now. So very, very unique career in that sense. Yeah, as it relates to the support staff, I was in that role for 3 years, and I like to think I did a good enough job that I was able to move up and all the stuff that everyone has said, in terms of, doing a great job in your tasks and not getting ahead of yourself and slowing down. And, but I would also say that, it was a little bit different time in that sense. And, in that regard, I think we're maybe going to get back to this from what I've been hearing. There's a lot of talk in the NABC about letting non-coaching staff members on the floor to potentially get them some experience coaching. When I was in the role, and again, Stan, you might remember this, or Phil or Chris, like we used to be able to go to high school games within 30 miles when you were like quote unquote ops. And I didn't do many like ops tasks. I was more video based, but we used to be able to go to games. So when you're at George Mason, within 30 miles, there's a lot of great, high school basketball games to watch, so I got experience sort of doing that. We also used to be able to work camps. So I worked Eastern Invitational. Phil and I worked together for many years in the 120 degree dorms with no AC and in July, and those are great memories. But I say that because I think, being able to recruit and Sean's on here too. Crocker's on here too. Yeah. Travers, that was the dorm. But no, I say that because the ability to learn a little bit, even if it was at camp, that was valuable to young guys. And I think we got to figure out a way to help the support staff guys do some of that, because, that may be a hindrance for them to get moved up in some ways. I think somebody used the term pigeonholed, like, hey, you're doing great in this job, but do I really believe that maybe you can take the next step? Well, it'd be nice if that guy got some experience on the floor. I think probably the reason why they don't, just for budget reasons and the level of playing field. But now, it seems like everybody's got those jobs. So why not help develop coaches that way? And then, the recruiting piece is probably the hardest one. Again, I was fortunate enough to, have a little bit of a background there, growing up in New York and living in DC for 10 years. But, even now, the stuff that people do with social media, the stuff they're doing with graphics, the stuff that you can do, from the office now, it almost looks like, again, it might be going towards where football has been, which is, some on-campus recruiting sort of things that can be done to get guys experience. And so I know I felt very fortunate when I was able to move up. And then as the rules started to change, I felt like, wow, if I was in one of those jobs during this time where the rules were so restrictive, it may have been very difficult for coach to move me up. And so I would be a proponent of, trying to deregulate that a little bit in the right way to give guys an opportunity.
No, that was great, Coach. And obviously the thing that you're able to do during that time really helped you move up. So that was a big time for sure. So a lot of people have sent in questions. So I think that's going to be more beneficial. So if you have a question that you want to ask to the panel or a specific coach, just drop your name in the chat and we'll work our way down that list for the next 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long, probably till like 10, 15, 10:30. It's just, again, be respectful of everyone's time. But again, if you have a question that you want to ask a specific coach or the panel, just drop your name in the chat. And like I said, we'll work our way down through. So Jared Crumpley, go ahead, unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Thank you everybody for speaking on this panel today. Jared Crumpley, manager at Loyola Chicago. And question I had was just what's a podcast recommendation that you guys would have, whether it be basketball or for just in life in general?
I could jump. I think the basketball podcast, Chris Oliver, who runs Basketball Immersion, that's a great one. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing. I listen to him every time he puts one out. So
The other one that I've heard of is that I've been on as well is Creative Coaching Podcast by Mike Lopez out of San Antonio.
Jared, I'll give you two non-basketball ones. Adam Grant, who's a professor at Penn, he does one, Work Life, I think is outstanding. The other one is a professor at Yale. I can't think of her name, but she does the Happiness Lab. Very, very interesting stuff. Really, and what I love about it is I think you can translate it to what we do into basketball. It all translates. So, I would, all those ones they mentioned, the basketball ones are good ones, but I think those are outstanding non-basketball ones.
I'm gonna follow in line with Coach Martelli, Jared. I'm gonna tell you two non-basketball ones as well. One being The Learning Leader by Ryan Hawk, and then the second one will be The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes.
Thank you.
Isaac, go ahead. Unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
All right. Well, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, but Coach Kupa, is that how you say it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sending me the info, letting me come on. So my question is, any coach can answer this, but being a high school student, I don't really have as much time on my hands to go and watch full games all the time. So I'm wondering, do you guys have any other recommendations? Oh, and I'm a current manager at my high school, but do you guys have any things that I could kind of do to build my basketball knowledge that doesn't really take 3 hours to do?
Isaac, you seem like a smart guy. YouTube, my man. YouTube. Search it. Everything's on there. I'm being sarcastic, but it's amazing now. One of the guys in our office was watching. Back when I started, it was a videotape and then it became a DVD, but this time of year, you'd be pumping in, Leonard Hamilton's transition offense, tape, and you would watch that. Now, we had a guy watching something the other day. So what are you watching? And he just had it on YouTube, and it was somebody's practice or somebody's. So I think that unless you can steal somebody's synergy password, find a synergy password that you can use. That other than that, I would say YouTube, the World Wide Web. It's amazing. Everything's on there.
Isaac, and the other thing is, he was talking about the videos and the DVDs. That's how I started as a high school coach. You can actually now use the stuff that's not on YouTube, that usually done by Championship Books and videos. You can actually now just get a membership and order what you want, and they'll send it right to emails. So you can go down if there's a program or a coach or a system that you want to study. I mean, you can go on and get things. It's not exorbitant in the prices, but you can go to Championship Books and Videos and start you an account and order what you want to be specific if you don't know how to look around YouTube, which is a fantastic idea.
Hey, Isaac, I'll give you an unconventional answer. Play basketball. And the reason why I say that is because of the fact that, one of the biggest things that we do as far as coaching is recruiting. And basketball allows you, when you're playing, whether it be at the park and the YMCA, you get to know the people that are around your area and build a relationship with those guys. And obviously, if that ends up becoming, whether you become a coach at the next level or something like that, you have the ends to know people that are around you. So I think that's a smart way and an easy, effective way. Not to mention, with a young kid like you, you're staying healthy, you're staying active, and you're staying, about it. So at the end of the game, just take as close measure to the game as you possibly can. Because at the end of the day, the game will change. So studying things right now, I'm not going to say it's not going to work later, but there might be different adaptations or different things that may translate differently as time goes on. So play the game, keep it simple, and you're young and you'll figure it out.
All right, next we have Curtis. Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Thanks for being on, coaches, and all the information you shared. My question is about, a lot of you talked about, Coach Martelli, you talked about doing your task and excelling at whatever responsibilities you're handed. How do you balance, excelling at your activities, but also trying to gain more responsibilities and just like keep kind of moving up in what you're doing?
Well, I think it's a big deal that whatever you're given, you do it to the best of your ability. Chris mentioned, and it's a great point, like the guy that goes like, well, I want to be in that recruiting meeting, so the hell with class checks. And then guess what happens? Later that day or later that week, somebody gets a report that, Curtis didn't go to class. And now who are they calling? Chris. And no one remembers that Chris was in that meeting. They just know that he didn't do that task. So I think that's ultra important. And Matt brought it up early too, like, making sure people know what your aspirations are, and not be over the top with it, but yeah, go sit with an assistant coach or go sit with whoever and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Like, how do I navigate that? So I think it's just that. I really do. I mean, I'm a firm believer in just working hard and doing your job and, believing that good things will come from that. So, really other than that, and maybe talking, maybe one of these other guys has a better idea, but, that's kind of worked for me. And it's kind of, the advice that I give, anybody that walks into my office.
I would just jump in there. I think it's a great question, and I would agree with Phil and Chris. You can't get ahead of yourself. You gotta do a great job in the job you're in. You gotta really be a star in that role, as they say. I think the other thing I heard Gino Auriemma speak at Nike a number of years ago, and I thought he had a great way of saying this. And it really, what he was saying is he's a lifelong learner, but he was the women's assistant at Virginia in the heyday of the ACC, where, you have Dean Smith, you have Mike Krzyzewski, you have Lefty, Jimmy V. Like, it's just a great time for the ACC. And he said he used to go in the locker room and of like their locker room, and kind of it backed up into the opposing team's locker room, and he put his ear up to the wall and he could hear, what Dean Smith would be saying to his team, or what Coach K, young Coach K, or what Terry Holland, I guess, was averaging at the time. So he'd go to their practices, and the point I would say, and the way he said it was, yeah, I wanted to learn things I didn't know, and I think there's a lot of value in like being a lifelong learner is going to serve you very well. I think a lot of times young guys are wanting to, and I was certainly one of these guys, I probably a little bit of both, like you want to show people what you know because you've tried to learn a lot, but having learn-it-alls instead of know-it-alls is always going to be better. And so it's a balance, but it's a great question. And I would say you have to find a way to do both. The younger you are, family, no bills, no real responsibilities. Now's your time to be a learn-it-all, because the older you get, like I've got a 6-year-old here and a 1.5-year-old, and man, it seems like you got to really carve out time. If I go back to when I was 22, I had a lot of time on my hands, whether I knew it or not.
I would piggyback on what Coach Martelli and Coach Caputo just said, being a star in what you're doing and fulfill your role at the highest level you can possibly do it. But the second thing you need to put in conjunction with that is, in your own time, become a master of what you're not in charge of without telling everybody you're doing that. The one thing I've done in my career, and I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity to be a head coach now that I'm getting to be a little long in the tooth, but all these years I've worked on what my head coaching plan is going to be, and it has nothing to do with bringing that to Coach Hamilton and trying to say we should be doing it that way with Coach Hamilton. A lot of Coach Hamilton stuff I would do, some stuff I'm going to do, go back to when I was a high school coach and implement when I was a head coach. So when you can go be a master, so now what happened in my first 2 years at Miami, I was a restricted earnings coach. And so other coaches had more responsibilities, but I studied every day watching they were doing. And when we had movement on the staff after that second year, I was 2 years removed from being a private high school coach in the state of Mississippi to being in the Big East. And Coach moved me up. He changed my roles in terms of what we were doing in practice because I was prepared to do that. And another thing that you can learn from Dennis Gates, who was on our staff, and I think it's really helped him in his progression in his first year as a head coach. During our off seasons, he made it a point to go to every other sport on our campuses practices when we weren't in season, and watch their head coaches and watch their coaching staff, how they operated, from what the coach was doing, who was delegated to what, different styles, different calls of how they run through their practice schedule and planning, and where things fit in. So instead of just always studying what we did at Florida State, he was studying Mike Martin and Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Bowden and the people that were there, and the other great coaches we've had in other sports. Mark Krikorian, who's won a couple national championships in soccer, he'd go and just sit and take notes on how they conducted their program. So I think those are some things you can add outside of being a star in your role that you currently have, of how to prepare for future roles.
Chris, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. My name is Chris Spears. I'm going into my first year as a graduate manager at Colorado. My roles are going to be kind of more towards a graduate assistant, synergy work, player development roles. My question is, I'm a big first impression person. What are some things that a new GA at your school, if your program didn't have GAs, managers, someone new to your staff, has done that really stood out to you? Great first impression, great get to know for that guy.
We just hired a GA as well, and he's been awesome. And the things that he has done that has helped us a lot is a lot of organization, managing recruiting database and different things like that, but also just being in office. He's the first one in the office, and he's always there after all the coaches are gone too. That's something that I've noticed, and nobody said anything to him. Like, I haven't said anything to him. Nobody, I don't think I said anything to him, but I noticed that. And he's an old manager of ours as well. So kind of hit on what Coach Jones said. He did such a good job as a manager. When the GA spot open, it was an easy hire. you know. So those are little things that obviously I notice that has kind of put an impression on me, first impression. So
Yeah, I was gonna say just be available. First impression, just be available. If you're just getting a job and you're not around, that's a bad first impression. If you're getting there, just be available and be accessible to everybody there, and that you're willing to help and you're going to be around to help. That's the best thing I can tell you.
Other thing I'll say is, and I'll just give you an example. We have a manager on our roster. Well, he just graduated, but his nickname was G Money. And I could tell you this, for the first 2 months that I was here, I did not know the kid's name. I just knew him as G Money. And the reason why was because his personality was just so enthusiastic. Again, it goes to the fact of being available, being accessible, being, ready to master your role, but also in the sense of having an infectious personality. He just was so ready to do whatever, and he had a great personality of talking to people and communicating and always being upbeat, never bringing any problems, always just trying to figure out the best ways to do his role. And so I think that draws people in. Humans, we are naturally drawn to energy, and so when we're drawn to certain positive energies, we naturally flock towards it. And so everybody on our coaching staff had a relationship with that one manager more so than a lot of the other ones that we have, and it was just because of that, because he was just very engaging in his personality. So the biggest thing I could say is be you, but be infectious with who you are.
We hire our GAs out of having to come work our camps in the summer. This will be the first summer we haven't been able to do that. And one of the first things we do, and it's not trying to be mean or disrespectful, is we give those guys that say they want to be a GA for us one of the most menial, sorry jobs to see how they're going to, first, body language and facial expressions respond to it, how quick they're going to get it done, or they coming back wanting to know what else they can do. And my dad used to have an old saying, he said, turn your hat around backwards so I think you're coming back. And that's what we try to, that's the first impression we look for before we go to sitting down and having any conversations about do they fit into our job, or that first initial reaction to how do they respond to something that isn't that important.
Chris,
Stan, that reminds me of, I was just going to jump in, the guy like Belichick, they say Eric Mangini, who's his assistant, wound up being the head coach of the Jets and the Browns. I think he played at Wesleyan too, so Belichick hired him and put him on the grounds crew. Like his first job with the Patriots, he was laying the tarp. And maybe 5-7 years later, he's a head coach in the NFL. So it goes to what you're saying about that first job.
Chris, the thing I'll tell you, man, is that's something that's big for me that I watch is guys that come in that talk less and listen more. I think if you listen, obviously, be more very intentional about listening, you learn more than you think you will from the guys that you're serving. And I think the sooner you learn about the individuals that you're around, that you're serving, the better off you're going to be able to assist them. Just like Coach Capko said earlier, just be available. But if you find a way to be able to be intentional about how you're available, and, obviously the coaches around you will pick up on that and see that, and then I think that'll help you and take you a long way.
I appreciate that, Coach. Appreciate that, Coach. Oh, go ahead, Coach. Oh, cool. Go ahead, Ryan. You can ask your question.
All right. Thank you in advance. I'm Ryan Mulligan, assistant coach at the Park School Buffalo. I had a similar start to coaching to Chris Capko. I got my MBA, realized it wasn't for me. Did a little thinking, came to coaching, kept circling back to coaching is what I wanted to do. So I got started, but I'm debating going back to school. So this is kind of a broad question for everyone. Debating going back to school. If I do, I'd be, targeting a student assistant, student manager role if available. And basically my question is, would this be counterintuitive or taking steps back to where I already am? And any advice you guys have moving forward?
I don't think I don't think anything's counterintuitive, to be honest with you, man. We get I probably get 5 emails a day about GAs. These jobs, all of them are coveted, and you got to look at it like that. And if you can get an opportunity with just one staff, you're fortunate. You know, when I became a GA, I thought it was going to be easy to find that job, and it is hard. And it took me to go through that experience to realize how lucky I am every step of the way. And so one of my outlooks is I don't take for granted any position I've had, because when you get in it, you realize how hard it is to get in, stay in, and do all that. So I don't think it's counterintuitive at all or counterproductive to what you're trying to do. You just need opportunity. When you're starting out, you need opportunity. And if you can get that, that's all you can ask for. And then all this stuff that we've talked about comes into play. So just don't look at it like that. Be fortunate for what you got, be fortunate for opportunity, and to make the most out of that opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. Colston, hope I said your name correctly. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I'm Colston Thompson, GA at La Tech. So kind of Coach Jones already answered my question. Basically, I was going to ask if, do you believe in having a niche, and do you need a niche? And if so, my niche is player development. That's kind of why I'm here for the most part. And so can having that niche, and say it's player development in my situation, can that continue to take you further? Or do you really need to start expanding on all the other aspects of coaching and stuff like that? I know you need to know how to do everything, but like, do you believe in having a niche, and can that take you somewhere? And I guess that's for all the coaches.
Colson, first off, I'll jump in. Being in Louisiana Tech, near and dear to my heart. So I love what they do up in Ruston, man. It's close around me from where I grew up. But, the first thing I'll say is that, I don't necessarily believe in a niche. I believe that if you can coach, you can coach. But beyond that, coming in, we always say there's a difference between player development and skill development. I know for certain there's a bunch of guys running around saying that they're player development coaches and they're just doing a bunch of cone drills. There's a difference between both. Skill development is more stuff that you're doing on the court. I believe that player development is the totality, the holistic approach of making sure that your guys mentally are fine and, academically and the whole nine. Player development is essentially what coaches do on a day-to-day basis. Checking classes, making sure guys are academically sound, making sure socially they're impactful, making sure they're understanding their resources on campus, making sure they're doing the best that they can to be, available to, whether it be athletically, academically, administration, socially, whatever the case may be. I think player development is the holistic approach. And so, don't look at that as essentially as a niche, because that's the entirety of what we do as coaches, is that we take care of our players and understanding everything that they possibly can. But beyond that, I do think it's important for you to understand, whether that be, certain playing styles, understanding what coaches need, understanding parts of the business, understanding how to recruit people in your area, understand how to communicate effectively. All those things are important moving up and moving into the next level. So the more that you learn, the more that you ask questions about. I think that's one thing that gets lost, is that, asking great questions is huge, especially to the people that are around you. But I think the more that you do when it comes to that, you'll really, really get to see what you're capable of. But, don't necessarily limit yourself as far as just saying, oh, I'm player development, or I'm this, or I'm that. It's the totality of what you bring as far as a coach. And if you can coach, you can coach.
Good stuff. Thanks, Coach.
Colston, to piggyback onto what Coach Montgomery said, a niche will get the door open for you, but you got to have way more than that to get the door open and get inside the room, and to have a career. A lot of young guys, they look at just something right now that makes them feel good, and you don't realize that to be good in this business, you got to have a longevity to your approach. And I tell all our young GAs all the time, I think one of the other coaches said it in one of their comments earlier, and I use it this way. Every day we're out there setting up a tailgate, or we're checking something on campus, or we're making running here or running there. As I tell them, hey guys, you're coaching. And so many young guys now that whether they former players or what, they want to say player development, skill development. I got my chance with Coach Hamilton because he was looking for somebody that was into team development. And if you're going to make it long-term in this business, it goes way beyond being able to help one guy get better. Because if you can't make five function as one and continually get better doing that, you'll fall flat on your face and you'll start finding out you become very selfish. And the only people you'll spend time with is the people that respond to your drills or your time that you put in with them. And that's how your team falls apart, and you end up having a fragmented locker room, which gives you no chance of being successful in today's world. It's tough enough already to have chemistry and synergy in a locker room. And so you've got to be really good at that, more important than just being a player development. But that's a way to get started. But once you get started, you got to be adding layers onto what you're doing every season, every day, every minute, your waking moment you're there.
That's cool, Coach. Thanks.
Terrell, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, guys, and thank you for your time. Terrell Harris, Team Durant, 16U assistant coach, and also intern my first year at PG Community College as an assistant. My question is for Coach Martelli, and in regards to recruiting. I know Bryant, they offer a lot of kids. I guess what's the mindset behind doing that?
So when we took the job here 2 years ago, they had won 3 games. They were the worst program in the country. And being from Philadelphia, Jared's from New York, one day he said to me, he goes, "Does anybody in Philadelphia know what Bryant is?" And I said, "No." He said, "Yeah, nobody in New York knows." So we'd kind of brainstorm some ideas of, just trying to market the program and things like that. And one of the things we talked about was, obviously, it with the kids you're coaching, they love to be offered. They love to promote their offers. And they're followed by all of these other kids throughout the country that they play with and play against. So one of our thoughts was, we're going to offer all these top kids. One, I don't think there's a kid I've talked to who Bryant is their dream school. But if for whatever reason, I use Jalen, because I know, I've known Jalen Worley's family for a long time. If I had called Jalen Worley and he said, "No, you know what? Florida State's not my dream school. Bryant's my dream school, and I'm coming to Bryant," you're damn right we would take him. So guys want to hit me and go like, "Well, you wouldn't take all those kids." No, but we'll take one of them. And if any of these top 50 or top 100 kids want to come to Bryant, you're damn right we're going to take them. And you're going to take them at Presbyterian. You're going to take them at Mount. You're going to take them all at anywhere, at any level. So that's part of it. Part of it is our name has gotten out there. And it's funny because I'll get calls from guys and go like, "Man, I got my guy. He really wants a Bryant offer." And I'm like, "Which kid?" And I'll say the name. I'm like, "That kid's at least an Atlantic 10 player. Like, what does he really want? A Bryant?" But he looked at it and goes, "Well, his teammate was on a graphic and it was Miami and Florida State and USC and Bryant." And you're like, all right, like I guess. And the other thing is, and this is where we've kind of really hit it, is we have 9 new guys coming in this year. We have 6 transfers. 3 of those transfers are coming from high levels. One was originally at Wake Forest, one at Rutgers. We offered those guys early at some point in time. So for some of these guys, it's just getting an initial relationship that, hey, if that guy goes to Miami and it doesn't work out for some reason, they know Bryant. We had that leg up as quickly as the transfer market goes now. And I'm telling you, we were done in early April with 6 scholarships and with transfers. We were going straight transfers and we were done quick because a lot of those guys we had relationships with, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, through offering them. And I'll be honest, like, it's very simple. It's very simple. It's a text. It's a text here and there with all the stuff on social media now. We send a lot of that stuff out. blast that stuff out. So it's not necessarily conversations with kids, but it's like, yo, this is what we're doing. We're the only team in the country to triple our win total in a year. We're the only team in the country to quintuple our win total in 2 years. Taking over, again, it was the worst program in college basketball. But here we are, where people are talking about it. You're down in D.C., in the D.C. area, right, talking about Bryant. 3 years ago, you had no idea that Bryant existed. And probably no one else on this call, and myself included, didn't know that Bryant existed. But, here we are. So I know there's people that roll their eyes at us and whatever, but it's working right now, and we're going to continue to do it. And again, you got a top 100 kid that comes into you and says, "Man, Bryant, I just want to go to Bryant. Smithfield, Rhode Island is my destination. Screw Miami, screw Tallahassee. I want to go to Smithfield, Rhode Island." We're in.
Your way.
He's got his offer. He knows he can come. So
right. And I'm a Philly guy as well, born and raised. So yeah.
I love everything about that. So
hey, I'm a PG County guy. I grew up probably about 5 minutes from PGCC. So yeah, I know where you're at too.
Yeah, I'm right here in Landover, right behind FedEx Field.
Coaches, this is Jeremy Pope, Arizona Compass Prep. I just have some questions for whoever wants to answer, if it's on your heart to answer. In terms of recruiting, getting your first crack at a job, your first time ever as a Division I assistant, and especially for the guys who are now at the high major level, taking a step up. Where do you mentally go, or where did you mentally go in terms of, I guess, handling the pressure of getting the first time at it? And then especially at the higher major level where you're dealing with people and with kids more so, with bigger circles, more adults' hands are in it. You got to touch more bodies to satisfy their circle and that whole deal. And also some healthy ways to still be able to function as a human being as well as trying to do your job, given the landscape of the business with the short leashes and stuff we're seeing now. For whoever wants to answer.
I can start. Yeah, I think going from the mid-major level where we had success up to the high major level, I would say we were lucky to have a pretty good team we inherited, because I think you learn a lot about probably the way you have to recruit at this level is different in a sense. I don't know. I do agree. I think you probably don't recruit. I would say this. We went to Final Four at George Mason. We thought we were doing great. We had won a game in the NCAA tournament the last year, and absolutely nobody cared about that when we got to Miami. Like you had to reinvent a way of presenting your program based on how you think you could be successful. And it had nothing to do with the past. And, there's a lot of trial and error there. And particularly if you have a bad team at this level, you have to try to execute that plan. And if you don't execute it, you won't be here very long. You got to get lucky. So I think like what Phil was saying a little bit about their plan at Bryant, like, they're executing their plan. It seems like it's going pretty well. The reality is you have a very short window to execute that properly at the high level. And especially when there's so many people, like Coach Hamilton and Coach Jones and all the people we have to compete against, that they may have been in the league and kind of they've hit their stride and they kind of know what they're doing. And you're taking over maybe a situation that's not as good. And you're like, well, this is how I think we can do it. This is the blueprint. And let's try to make it happen. And if not, we'll be looking for new work pretty quickly. So I think the pressure of not only developing your plan, but implementing that plan, executing it is I found it to be harder at this level in that regard. All jobs are hard, by the way, but that was the hard thing.
Jeremy, the one thing I'd say is kind of to touch on what Chris said is don't lose focus of what you were doing prior to that, the evaluation. Too much other noise sometimes at this level in terms of ranking and all that stuff. It don't mean nothing, and it really doesn't. And worry about how he fits what you do, the type of guys you can coach, and stick to the basics in terms of the evaluating, because just because he's not a top 100 player or because he is a top 100 player doesn't mean he's right for your program. And so you can't lose focus of that and what's important to your program, how he fits your head coach, how he fits your style of play, and just stick with the basics of that, and then let your work ethic take over in terms of the energy you put into recruiting, the creativity you put into it, the relationship you build into it. But the biggest thing is just don't lose track of the basics. You still got to get out there and evaluate who is right for you and who is not right for you. And don't worry about what you're reading or what someone else says or what someone's opinion is, because I don't even know what a HM minus is or an MM plus is. I don't know how you tell the difference. Just go out there and worry about, do they fit what you do, and have an eye for what your coach wants and what's important to you guys in your program.
I think also just well, first of all, for us, we're kind of easy in a certain sense, because there's certain players I don't have to worry about being at Penn. I mean, if you ain't got the grades, there's nothing that we could do for you. So just part of it is knowing, you know, again, like what Coach Chris just said, you know, knowing your coach, knowing your style of play, knowing the fit, knowing your university, knowing what, you know, you guys could do. But then beyond that, being able to evaluate properly. But then again, just trusting your eye and going out there. But I think one of the things, especially for me, jumping from the D3 level to the Division I level, I think a big thing was, you know, they always say, like, you know, it's okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. You know what type of guys that had success in your program prior to you being there. I think the first thing that I did when I jumped in was I looked at a bunch of guys that were here at Penn that had success, that our coaches really talked about ad nauseum to a certain extent, and then kind of start off and mimic those guys and try to find more guys like that. And then you start to realize, like, kind of, you know, what's your range of this? Okay, I need bigs like this to fit this, or I need guards particularly with this mindset, or whatever the case may be. And you kind of use that as kind of like a stencil to kind of figure out where you can go. But just understanding, you know, just what fits your head coach and what worked. I think that the guys that I initially started looking at were literally mirror images of what was here in the past. And I think that was important for me because, again, I'm not an Ivy League grad. I have no experience with the Ivy League prior to being here. And so knowing that we have a different type of player, especially with the educational piece, it's very important for us to recruit as necessary as we possibly can. So I think just understanding the guys that were in your program and who had success prior to that also helps.
And being the other high major assistant on this Zoom, since you kind of asked that question, you know, when I first got with Coach Hamilton, I was riding with him to a coaches retreat we were having. I said, Coach, you got to teach me how to be a recruiter like you've been noted for. And he looked at me and he said, you'll be fine. I said, your sincerity will allow you to be successful as a coach. And just not to repeat what the last three guys have said, I mean, you got to be able to recruit people you feel comfortable with. And, you know, early on at Miami 25 years ago when I started recruiting the first time, Miami wasn't at the same perception and reality level that it is now, was what Coach Caputo and them have down there now. It was way different time. They were just coming off reinstating the program, you know, and now they're a team that's competing in the top third and winning championships in the ACC. And so it's come a long way. So we were more like Coach Martelli and Bryant early on. When I got with Coach, we were calling everybody and asking everybody and offering everybody and trying to find out what we could stick to make some things happen. And you got to be a little more lucky than you got to be good. There's no science to this. It's more of an art. But as we've developed and we've been able to prove that we can develop guys on the floor and we have a competitive team. First, we had to learn to be competitive before we could start worrying about championships. And once we got to that part, we've narrowed that focus down now. And we're kind of looking for three things, and they fall into three categories. First off, we're looking for character. I mean, Coach Hamilton's kind of that last bridge plank of the great African-American head coaches from John Thompson and George Raveling and all those guys and coaches, kind of the last connection to that. So a lot of people are reaching out to Coach, wanting to know if we're interested. And, you know, Coach asked some pretty poignant questions early. And if there's a sense of we're not going to enjoy coaching this situation, we'll move on for it and look for somebody we feel that has these characteristics. And we look for characters, number one, people that I really want to do this for the right reasons. The second thing we look for is humility. And I told a recruit and his dad not too long ago, I said, Coach, how did y'all develop Devin Vassell from being a guy that we beat North Florida and maybe Presbyterian was one of his offers when we signed Devin, and he's going to be in the lottery this year. I said, his mom and dad and his coaches from high school and AAU stayed out of the way. They said, we trust you. And because I told his dad, I said, Tiger Woods used to be the dominant golfer in the history of the game until he started changing swing coaches. These kids can't develop if they're hearing too many voices. So we're looking for those people that have humility and say, Coach, we trust and we see what you guys have been doing, and we get there. And so we have to evaluate that humility, not just with the kid, but with the people around it, because if they're not willing to do that and trust that we're going to put this young man in the right position, we have to decide, is the problems going to be more than the talent the kid can bring to our program? Then obviously the last thing we look for is kids that have a tremendous competitive spirit. They come out of programs that are used to winning. They're used to playing at a high level. And so we want to recruit kids. We enjoy coaching right now at our stage in our career, and it's been working pretty effectively for us here the last 5 or 6 years.
All right, so we'll go Jeremy, and then we'll go Evan, and then we'll finish up with some last thoughts, and then we'll let everybody go. So Jeremy, go ahead, ask your question, and then Evan, you can finish up, and then we'll call it a night.
I just want Caleb. They just answer mine.
I think it was me, Caleb.
Chris, you have a question?
Yeah, but someone else can go ahead of me, though. This would be my second one.
Okay, Evan, go ahead, and then we'll finish off with Chris.
Okay, I'm Evan Wiley, a graduate assistant coach at the University of West Florida, right down the road from Coach Jones. My question is, and this is kind of for everybody, what are some things you've done in terms of like keeping up with the relationships that you've formed in the past? And then what have you done recently in terms of like fostering new relationships, especially with all the COVID stuff going on at this point in time?
I made a relationship with Caleb Kupa because of quarantine.
Yes, sir, Coach. The Twitter DMs. Don't sleep on the Twitter DMs, everybody. It's a great way to get connected with some high level dudes. So I'm telling you, I don't care what everybody's saying. The DMs are where it goes down.
Yeah, I would just piggyback, just say, I think especially now I know for me, a lot of people had picked up the phone or, answered an email when I was getting started. And most of us who have been in the business a long time, very, very willing to do that as well. So I would say don't feel bashful at all about reaching out to people. Most guys are going to reach back out because you kind of try not to forget where you came from.
I think also these Zooms have kind of helped with the networking ability of most coaches, because when you see everybody on the road, it's cool to be cordial and everybody's shaking hands and kind of meeting and greeting, but at the same token, everybody knows that they have a job to do. So for the most part, everybody's still evaluating players that are playing, and they're trying to get the best that they can. So you don't want to necessarily be talking to a guy for 4 hours while people are playing. But these Zooms have made it a little bit more accessible because you could talk and see people's faces. I know for me, especially, this entire pandemic has been, I tried to use it as an opportunity to be able to get to know coaches a little bit more personally. And there's actually a group of us that, we're fairly common in a lot of the Zooms that we're in. I know all of us coaches were probably, since March, we've probably been in hundreds of Zooms with countless amounts of coaches. But sometimes there's some commonalities in these Zooms where you're with some guys that you're constantly seeing, and then you end up making a relationship with them. I know there's probably at least about 15 guys that I've built a legitimately close relationship with, where we've talked multiple times a week since the pandemic has started. And so I think this has been a positive way for particularly me, but I think for everybody to build new and valuable relationships.
All right, go ahead, Chris. You finish us off with the last question of the night.
All right, so this question is kind of not on basketball specifically, more Coach Lagroone, you said something that really kind of hits me as far as where I'm at with my life right now, talking about your family. Right now, I'm out in Boulder. I just moved out. My wife is still in Sacramento. She's with our 19, 20-month-old daughter. She's 9 months pregnant with our son coming up. And I really aspire to have a successful coaching career and to make this business work for me and them. But I also know that there are some things I'm going to have to do, like right now, leaving them behind. So what are some things, this is for everybody as well, not just Coach Lagroone, but those of you that have families that you've done to make things easier, to involve them more in different ways. I just would like to hear people talk about that.
Yeah, I would, and again, I haven't been a parent that long, but it certainly, it's more challenging. You got to be more efficient with your time. I think you got to manage your energy levels. Like, you got to be in great shape yourself to be able to sort of have the ability to not get any out of doing both jobs. I think the people you work for have to have some understanding of it. And I think you got to involve them. You know, if you can, even my 5-year-old, I've taken, to a high school practice and things like that. And you just got to be very present, I think, when you're with them. And, if you have a lot of hobbies, you probably got to think about giving the hobbies up. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah, Chris, I would say, one, you got to marry the right person, and you've obviously already done that. So hopefully she's the right person. My wife played. Her father's a high school coach. He doesn't have a lot of players, so it's not like I married her to get like players. You know, I know some of you guys are thinking that, but so I'm very lucky that way, because you need somebody that understands, like, oh, practice is at 10 o'clock on Saturday. It'll be over at 12:30. Oh, you'll be home by 12:45. Like, practice is over at 12:30, and then I got this to do, and I got that to do, and then, hopefully I'm getting there by whatever time. I've been really fortunate, obviously, growing up around it. I caught the bug early. I have a 10-year-old son, almost 11-year-old, 8-year-old daughter, and a 2-year-old son, and they love it. The boys especially, they love it. I mean, they're like nuts about it. That really, really helps, and you can't control that, but that really helps that they're really into it. Because like Chris said, if I say to my son, like, all right, we're going to drive over and watch, Putnam Science play Woodstock, he's in the car before I am, and he's jacked up about it. And that's the greatest for me, especially having done it as a child, to now do that as a father is like the greatest thing in the world to me. So to be able to share that. Now, at the same time, I love, love, love what I do. It's all I've wanted to do since I was in 7th grade, when I didn't see a whole lot of unathletic white guys in the NBA. And I realized, okay, I'm 5'11", and I'm an unathletic white guy. There's not many of me out there. So I got to find something else to do. And so for me, as much as I love this, I love my family even more. And if there was a day where they said, we can't do this anymore, can't do it anymore, then I'd have to make that decision and move on. But I can sit here confident saying I have people in my life that they would never let me do that. They kind of go the opposite way. And like, moving to Rhode Island after 8 years in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia area, around my whole family, that was really, really, really a hard decision. You're obviously making a really, really hard decision right now. But when you have people that support that and build you up, to me, it makes me get up the next day and go, all right, I got to work my ass off for however long it is. And whatever it is that I'm doing today, I got to make sure I'm doing the best job in the world for them. Not for me, but for them.
Thank you. Yeah, I resonate with a lot of that.
And I could add on to that, because I'm the older guy, that I was a high school coach for 14 years when my kids were growing up. And I speak a lot on this. I get asked a lot of clinics to talk about vertical mobility and coaching, because I've been at every level. And I say this when I first start my talk is, if you're a true man of integrity, and I'm also a person that puts a high value on faith, at some point, and not at some point, at the beginning of that relationship with your wife, and then when you have your children, is their happiness has to precede what your career path happiness is. And so you have to be able to have that. Now, if you have, like Coach Martelli said, you marry the right woman, you're going to have some hard conversations consistently. Because I go from being married for 19 years. I've got an 18-year-old daughter who's going to be a senior down at Miami Palmetto High School, and she has worked hard and become the drum major of the band. And I got a 16-year-old son who's in the magnet program from web design. He's basically a genius. And we win the Big East. Coach Hamilton signs a 7-year contract. We think we're going to be in Miami. My kids are going to be able to go to school there on tuition remission. And 4 months later, Coach Hamilton takes the Washington Wizards job. And there's nothing I can do about it. The University of Miami is not going to give me the head coaching job. Coach Hamilton's gracious enough. He takes me to the Washington Wizards, but I'm not going to take my daughter's happiness away. So I ended up going and living in a one-room apartment in Laurel, Maryland, driving 17 miles into back then it was the MCI Center. I think it's the Verizon Center now, and bringing them up during Thanksgiving holidays, during the Christmas break, spring break. They were up. When Christmas, I was able to go home. And we played at Miami twice. We played in Orlando twice. So they'd always come up and spend that time we were there. But I communicated with my kids every day. But I was lucky that I built my relationship when those kids were young, riding to high school with me every day, staying in the after school care program, coming to the gym to hang out with me the rest of the day, and then riding home with me when it's time to go home that night and going to the games and running my camp store and that kind of stuff. So we had already built a relationship as parent and child. And when we got to that point, it was emotionally difficult, but it was manageable. Then we're going to move up to DC the next year. Thinking Coach had a 4-year guaranteed contract. Michael Jordan decides to let him go after 1 year. And so I'm going to Mississippi State the next year on an $80,000 pay cut. And my son's now a junior in the web design magnet program. I'm not going to take him out of that and put him in Starkville High School. I'm just not going to do that because what he was doing with his mentality and his intellect would not be fair to him. So I lived in a dorm room for a year at 41 years old and was the third assistant at Mississippi State to keep my career going, but also to keep my family in a happy situation. And then ended up the next year, Coach Hamilton came back, took Florida State, which I didn't think he was getting back in coaching at the time. And he asked me to come back and be his associate head coach. And then we were able, after my son graduated from high school the next year, to move everybody together. And my kids went to Florida State. But all the exciting things from going from being a private high school coach to coaching in the NBA came with some things that I had to negotiate. But I married the right person. We had a great faith. We had the great ability to communicate with the ways we were able to communicate. And those are decisions you have to make, though, before they happen. You got to know that it could happen. And you and your wife, when you have those date nights, instead of just being kissy face, you're going to have some hard conversations away from your kids. And you got to have those date nights where you're kissy face too. But you're going to have those conversations. And the best thing that will happen this year, I actually married my wife in a long distance relationship. I met her in church camp after my senior year in high school. So we, for 3 years before we got engaged and everything, had a long distance relationship where back then you had to write letters and collect phone calls and all that kind of stuff. We couldn't have the access we have now. So when it happened, and even when I was recruiting and I'm on the way with my team, we had a trust factor that we built in. So the one thing I would encourage you and challenge you during this year while you're apart, while your child's young and not really going to know you're not there all the time yet, you got a little bit more time on that, is to find a way to allow this to grow your love for each other and grow your trust in each other, so that when you advance into those next levels and you got to go on a 3 or 4 or 5 day or the July recruiting period. Back when I started recruiting, you had to be on the road 23 straight days. You have those days, you're going to have a relationship where you can come up with a plan where the trust is there and you can still have the right communication. So hope that wasn't too long, but it's something that's a big part of my life and my career and my faith.
No, Coach, that was great. Thank you.
Chris, I'm gonna try to touch on that because obviously it's hard to probably come behind somebody that with Coach Jones' wisdom. But this is something that's huge for me. I mean, my family has always been important to me, always been, right up there with God and my faith when it comes to them. But I'm gonna touch on 3 quick things that I'll tell you, and I'm only gonna speak from my experience. Obviously, a few of these guys have already spoke on a couple of my things, but the number one thing is communication. And that has to be very, very important. Like Coach Jones said, you're going to have a lot of hard conversations. But the thing I'll say about communication is this. You got to realize that your wife is not a player or a recruit, right? So, like, we get so accustomed to when we're at work 10, 12 hours a day, and we're working with our guys and we're talking to our guys, we do more talking than we do listening. But when you get home, you got to be able to flip the script. You need to do more listening than you do talking, because your wife is going to be going through some things that you're going to really need to hear. And you don't need to get caught up into trying to talk back to her like she's a player and trying to coach her and quote unquote teach her kind of what's going on in your world. Because to be honest with you, Chris, she don't really care too much about what's going on in your world. You understand? She married you for you, not married you as a basketball coach. So you got to understand that when it comes to the communication part. That's something that I had to learn for myself. So again, like I said, I'm speaking from my own experience. The second thing is going to be, for me was very huge is accountability. I know Coach Caputo talked about it earlier. There's just going to be some things you're going to have to sacrifice, man. You know what I mean? Like if you want to go out here and you want to be a great coach, like you can't also go out there and want to be a great golfer. You can't also go out here and do the other things that's going to take your time away from your family and then say, well, I'm trying to be the best husband, I'm trying to be the best father, especially when you're growing your family and you're going to have more people looking to try obviously look for you as a father and as a husband and not as a Coach Spears. You understand what I'm saying? So you got to make sure that you're responsible and man enough to say, you know what, I can't do this, this, and this because I want to put more time into being a coach, but then I also want to put a lot more of my time in being a great husband and a great father. And then the third thing I'll say, man, is love and respect your wife. You know what I mean? Again, just like you want her to be happy for you as when you get your first recruit or you get that signing and commitment, or when you get that win when it was your scout, man, find things that you can love and respect and show you're happy about her and her success. You know what I mean? Obviously, I don't know your wife personally. I don't know her career path and journeys, but I do know she probably has goals in her life and things that excites her. So you need to be able to put yourself in her role and do the same thing you expect her to do for you. You know, we get so caught up and we want our wives to kind of just flock to our life, you know what I mean, and just kind of mold to our life and our journey and our passion. Like, you got to find out what she's passionate about as well, and you got to show her that you're just as happy for her excitement when she has good things to come in her life. You know? So those are three things that I would say, man. Again, you got to realize it. Your wife married you as the man, not as the coach. So I promise you, if that job is taken away from you tomorrow, she's still going to love you for who you are. You understand? You, even if you're not making $1 million of coaching at a Power 5 and won a national championship, she married you, and your kids gonna be the same way. They're gonna love you for who you are. So try not to let the business side of it. And again, keep your dreams up. Like all of us on here are trying to grow and be better. And obviously, all of our goals in this profession is to be able to coach at the highest level and achieve at the highest success or achieve the highest success. But at the same time, man, when you commit to having a family, you know, it's important to make sure that they know that they're just as important as those kids that you talk to on a daily basis. And again, like I said, congratulations, man. That's awesome that you're extending your family.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm expecting a call here any day now to fly back home. I just got here, but I'm getting the constant update on contractions, so it's any second now.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No, that's great, Chris. Great question. Just want to thank all the coaches for being a part of the call tonight. I feel like everybody was able to learn a great deal of information that's going to help them. Again, the point of these calls is to give people tangible things that starting tomorrow they can do to be successful. A lot of the times you get on these Zoom calls and coaches will say, be the hardest worker in the room, be where your feet are. That's great and all, but a lot of the time these individuals, young coaches, are trying to get tangible things they can start doing to be successful. So I appreciate all the coaches. I know not everyone's on. Everybody, some coaches had some prior engagements to get to, but I appreciate the coaches that are still here and other coaches that had to leave us a little bit earlier for being a part of this and giving some really great advice. I hope everybody was able to learn something. Just a little segue. Next week, we're going to do a high school head coaches panel. So we're going to have some high-level high school coaches on the men's and women's side. So looking forward to that. So be on the lookout for Twitter for the Zoom link for that. I'll send that out to anybody that's interested in coming out. But again, just want to thank everybody, especially the coaches, for giving us a couple hours of their time and being willing to share some information with some young coaches, some old coaches, and everybody in between.
Caleb, you're a superstar, man. Coaches appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you, man. Let me just drop my cell too. So if you have any questions, you need anything, hit me up. Always willing to help. and look forward to hopefully seeing a lot of you guys and girls next week. So thank you all for coming out, and have a great night.
Thank you, Caleb. Thank you, coaches.
Caleb, hang on for a minute, Caleb.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Take
Coach.
care,
Trey.
Caleb.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Coach Jones. Appreciate you.
Thanks, everyone. Good job, Caleb.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb.
Appreciate you,
DB.
Doug.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank
sir,
you.
Coach.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, Nick, what we holding on for, man?
I told Caleb to
Telling
hold on,
secret, you
DB.
telling secrets, man?
Man, you got all the secrets. You know
Nah,
that.
man.
You can stay on all day. You're a late night owl.
Nah, man, I don't want to look at you too long.
Nah, it's okay, man. I wouldn't want to look at myself either. At least my wife want to look at me. It's all right.
All right,
My
y'all.
wife good. All right, brother. Good job, man. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
It's tough. We starting workout, so it's a lot to manage. But I mean, I
Right.
feel like this is too good information. And a lot of times, some of these guys, like on Zoom calls, they kind of look at me like I'm better than what I am because I have access to some of these coaches, like Coach Jones. You can't just pick up the phone and call him. But since he was recruiting Worley,
Right.
I've got to know him. So I mean, I just felt like this was a good
Right.
opportunity to kind of give dudes platforms to get to know some high level coaches, some coaches at different levels, and just broaden their network. I mean, one of the things that our head coach talks about is don't be selfish. So I mean, it's
Right.
easy to, like Tony Bennett was recruiting our point guard. It's easy to keep his pack line stuff and just use it for our team, but I want to give that back to everybody because not everybody's going to have the access to Tony Bennett and his staff and be able to use that kind of information to help their players. Because I mean, that's what it's all about, trying to help our players get better. And if I can do that in the small role that I have now, I'm more than willing to do that. And the long nights trying to get the questions together and get the Zoom link and all that stuff is worth it when you see all these dudes getting better and learning some good things that all you guys spoke on tonight. So I mean, I just appreciate you, and I just feel like it was a great opportunity to try to give back. I mean, how fortunate I've been to be 24 and work at a high level school like this. I mean, they don't get that kind of opportunity. So just giving back to some young coaches that just maybe weren't as fortunate as I was, got the break that I did, and whatever you want to call it, but just trying to give back, like I said.
Nah, you're doing. Nah, it was phenomenal, man. I appreciate you having me. You
Yes,
know
sir.
what I mean? And again, I enjoy just hearing everybody else. You know, you learn from yourself. I took some notes. You know, you're obviously taking. You know, we're learning, so it's not even just young coaches, man. It's all people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So how's your family doing?
They're
Everybody
doing good. They're doing
Everybody
good. I
still
was over
safe and
there.
well?
Trying to think. I was over there on Sunday. I went to go see my parents. I had to get we had to fill out some like insurance stuff. So we had dinner. We talked for a little bit. It was just good to see them. It had been probably a couple of weeks, so it was just good to see them and talk to them, see how they're doing. So yeah, it was good. How about you? How's the wife and your son?
We're safe and well, man. We're safe and well. We're trying to hope to extend our family soon. That's our goal. We're trying
Yes,
to
sir.
extend our family. That's what we're trying to do, man.
Good.
Tell me this real quick. How are you individually? How's your growth?
I'm good. So our head coach has given me the platform. I don't know the platform, whatever you want to call it, to run workouts.
Away from basketball.
Oh, away from basketball. No, I'm good.
Away from
I'm good.
basketball. Where
Yeah, I'm
you
good.
growing at? Tell me what areas you growing in.
I think time, man. I mean, it's been tough. So I got let go from my teaching job because like the lowest man on the totem pole was a first year teacher. So I got let go just because of hiring freezes and all that kind of stuff. So just trying to find a job. I mean, that's been tough. Nobody knows what the school year is going to look like. So they don't know to hire teachers. So that's been tough. I mean, that's been kind of weighing on you. But I mean, my parents, they said that they're more than willing to help with rent and credit card bills and that kind of stuff because money's getting kind of tight right now. But I mean, just have that safety net has been good. So I mean, that's been tough. But I mean, basketball's just been a good getaway. Working out with their guys, seeing them in person, getting some work in with them a couple hours every day has been good to kind of get your mind off of that when you're stressing about that kind of stuff. So that's been good. But I mean, it's just it's good. I mean, just stay positive. I mean, I could be homeless. I mean, not everybody has parents that can afford to pay their rent and their credit card bill and their grocery bill and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I'm not the one to complain because things could be way worse. So I mean, things are good. I mean, just trying to find a job, just trying to grind it out and continue to get better. So no complaints over here.
You're a believer, right?
Yes, sir.
Have you prayed on it?
I will admit I have gone away. I will have gone away from it, but I do want to trying to really focus back in and carve out that time each day to make sure that that's getting done.
Right. So you want a job, right?
Yes.
You want an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So who do you expect to give that to you?
Who do I expect to what?
Who do you expect to give that to you?
A superintendent or a principal.
Right. Right. That's what I'm saying. So you expect man to give it to you, though. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, no, not God. Yeah, you got to pray on it for sure.
I mean, but you're not praying on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I was going to tell you, it's funny how that thing is, because I told you my alarm go off at 4:30, man. But my thing for you, man, is don't allow yourself to get caught up in everything else, and you lose sight on the real source.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, man, if you say you're a believer, don't get caught up in everything else. And again, everything else is a lot. We can be specific, but everything else is damn near everything else outside of God. Like, man, if you gotta pray, man, you gotta have faith. Don't pray to ask. Pray for thankfulness. Pray for believing, blessings. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously, if not, you just think somebody is gonna pick up the phone. I mean, again, it will be, but like you won't. If once that happens, you're not gonna say thank you, God.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna say tell that person thank you, and it's gonna be on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. The same way.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right. This like COVID, God, to me, without COVID, would you have all this opportunity to meet all these people? You know what I mean? But you think that man did that? Man just said, hey, we're going to have a freaking, a national world pandemic and everybody going to shut down, but I'm going to let people connect and meet new people and all that stuff. Man, God does that. Like I said in my thing, God aligns the stars.
Mm-hmm.
He aligns all the stars. No man goes up there and change the star and make that the big difference. Like, he aligns the stars, man. So that's just something I don't know, I felt want to say that. Some told me to just tell you, hold on. It's funny how that comes up, but man, pray on that. Pray. And again, like I said, don't pray to ask. God, give me a job. God, give me this. God, thank you for the lessons that you're teaching me and the things that I'm going through. I'm being able to learn more about myself. I'm being able to stay focused. I'm being able to thank you, because again, everybody goes through seasons, and most of them are just only temporary anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You won't be out of a job for very long. Ultimately you will get a job at some point, but you got to thank God for taking you through this time. So then when the time comes where you have a job and you're doing things you want and you have stability and you're not having to worry about credit cards, you're not having to worry about rent, you're going to be able to say, man, I know where that came from. It didn't come from me. It came from him.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Sure.
It didn't come from Julie, the superintendent. It didn't come from this person. So just make sure you do that. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate it, my guy. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, bro. You make sure
thank you again. No, thank you again for coming on. We really appreciate it. I feel like you gave some really good stuff. I mean, obviously we talked about it a bunch, but I feel like everybody else was kind of get a little snapshot of some of the things that you've helped me learn. So I appreciate you coming on.
You know how
some of that stuff.
I'll be transparent, but for me, man, like I'll give it to you real and raw, but once we connect, I'll give you whatever I can. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you having me. Like I said, I appreciate the words, man, and continue to keep doing what you're doing, man. Always thinking about you, praying for you, and I'm excited to see what you're doing from afar.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you later.
Coach Lagroone.
What's up, David? How you doing?
Hey, I want to thank you for there was a recording of your recruiting Zoom that you had a long time ago on Rising Coaches, and I stole that from you, and I want to thank you for it. You were talking about taking care of the house.
Yeah.
It's my dream, not my wife's dream.
Right.
If I'm not there and I'm not present to raise my son, then someone else will. I've been saying that in every conversation. They're like, "Oh man, that's very wise," and I'm like, "Yeah, there's a coach that." So yeah, man. So I want to send you my how grateful I am for blessing us with that, man.
David, I'm gonna put my number in this chat. Give me a call anytime, man.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate those words, man. Again, it's you're not stealing anything from me, man. You're just bettering yourself so you can better the people around you. That's all. You know what I mean? That's what it's all about, man. And again, I'm glad that I was able to say something that, was able to help you. So, but if I can ever do anything for you, man, or if you just want to give me a call, my phone is, unfortunately, is right here. but
Yes, sir.
You can call me anytime and shoot me a text. I love to connect. All right.
Cool, man. Yeah, so there's a job. So I got a job, but I'm not allowed to say it. And so I have a drive next week. It's gonna be 36 hours. So I'm definitely gonna hit you up. Is there a day of the week between Monday and Friday that works best for you? And a time of day?
I'll say this, David. You know how this business is, man. You stay one time and it's not. You know what I mean? So just give me a call. If I don't answer, shoot me a text or leave a message, and I promise you I'll respond. And if not, I'll answer probably when you do call. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
You just don't worry about it. And I'll tell you if I can. I promise you. If I'm at home and I'll say, man, I'll call you back. I'm eating dinner with my wife or I'm playing with my son. I'll call you back.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that.
I appreciate you, brother. Hey, man, best of luck to you, man, and be safe when you travel. That's a long time. You gonna break it up?
Yep. Gonna go. I'm in Seattle.
Yep.
And I'm headed over to Michigan, and I'm gonna be stopping by Yellowstone and Mount Rushmore, and
so you gonna make this a vacation too? That's what you're basically saying.
Shit, man, it's my dream, not my wife's, and she's just coming along for the ride.
I'm understanding it, man. Just make sure you know her dream too now.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Take care, my man.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Peace.
No problem.